Thank you for visiting Past the Wire TV, the YouTube channel of PastTheWire.com. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Past the Wire TV. I'm John Stettin. I'm here with my co-host, Michael Vale.
How we doing?
We're doing good, and we've got Paul Zilm with us tonight. And I think Paul is an important guest to have because he is probably an expert when it comes to casinos, sports wagering, fixed odds wagering, and how things are done in the Vegas market and what happens there formerly with Cirque Sports. And Paul, thank you so much for coming on. Look forward to picking your brain and talking a lot about the newest thing in horse racing, fixed odds wagering.
Well, thanks for having me and appreciate the kind words. And I think conversations like this are going to benefit everybody, including the three of us. So I'm excited to chat about it.
Yeah, the interesting thing that we talked about before we came on camera was, Paul and I don't know about you, Michael, you didn't weigh in on this yet, but Paul and I both tried to do a little bit of research about how fixed odds wagering is going to work in thoroughbred racing and when it spreads across multiple tracks and things like that. And we were both a little surprised at the lack of definitive knowledge out there as to what the real mechanics are going to be. We know what fixed odds wagering is, and we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
But the mechanics of it, a little bit of a mystery.
Well, the tricky part, John, is basically outside of, you've had overseas fixed odds wagering, and in the US, it's only been in Vegas. And most of the sports books that are basically at casino tracks now are these online guys like FanDuel and DraftKings. They're not really experienced with fixed odds wagering and horse racing. So it's going to take them a while to figure out what it's going to look like.
Right. Let's start by this. Fixed odds wagering is getting a certain price on a horse, betting the horse at that price, and locking in at that particular price. So you don't have that negative stigma that people always talk about a horse going in the gate at 3-1 and hitting the wire at 8-5, which we know happens. And I will say this in fairness, and I hate when that happens to me, and we all know it leaves a bitter taste, but it doesn't get talked about as much. But I have bet horses at 5-2, and they've crossed the wire at 3-1 and 7-2. I mean, it does occasionally happen that way also. It just doesn't get talked about, you know what I mean? And I'm like, wow, I was willing to take 2-1 on this horse, and I ate the short price. And look at this, I'm getting 5-2.
That's like a poker player. You can never tell about the big pots you won. It's the bad beats, right? That's
right, exactly. So it goes both ways.
And I think just, I know we don't want to get off too much on that, but I think what happens a lot is, we see a horse break, so much the best to the lead. And then we see that horse's odds drop. And we see that horse win by a pole. And then that's when people are, minds start going, well, okay, so the horse was 3-1 going into the gate, broke a mile the best and crosses the line at 8-5. And that's when I think you get all the and I'm one of those guys. But when you see a horse, yesterday's Indiana Grand, I think it was the Oaks. I don't remember exactly, but the horse that ended up winning the two-horse broke terrible, and it wouldn't have surprised me if that horse's odds went the other way, and the horse came on and won.
Right, and and people that say, well, that's conspiracy theory nonsense, don't believe, don't buy it. I don't buy that, because we all know that if Valpone didn't win the Breeders' Cup a couple of years ago, nobody would ever believe that people were betting pick sixes 3 races in. You know what I mean? You'd have told me, no, that's crazy. That can't happen. And we know it was happening, and on the biggest stage. So when that happens,
Order of Australia.
Yeah, right. Sometimes I'll notice trips, gentlemen, where a horse is a short price, okay, and getting a terrible trip, and the odds click up, and it makes me the same thing. I'm like, gee, I don't understand. What are they betting other horses because they see this horse is in a world of trouble? Why is he he in so much trouble, and he just went from 5-2 to 3-1. And those things do make you go, it's a,
Sure.
it's an unexplained mystery. So fixed odds definitely takes away that. You make a bet, you're locked in, you get 3-1, 6-1, 8-1, whatever it is. Those are your odds. Okay, that's the positive. You know exactly what you're getting. There's no changes during the race, and that's a positive. How that interacts with pari-mutual, I'm not sure. I guess you have your choice. You're at Monmouth, and you can bet a horse to win at the pari-mutual window, or you could bet him at the fixed odds window. One of the things that I'd like to talk about is caps on the amount that they let you bet and how they weed out, and I think we know that they do this. They weed out successful bettors, and I don't think they only do successful bettors. I told you guys I have reason to believe they do large bettors. I know a large bettor that gets limited and capped, and it's not because he wins a lot, because he doesn't win a lot. He's not who I would call a successful gambler or somebody that you would want to steer away from. I would think you would want his action, but because his action is so big, they're still a little bit leery because the data they don't want to get hit. He's betting at offshore, on online sites, and I know William Hill advertised for a position within their company here in the United States, and one of the job requirements read something to the effect of watch the wagers and patterns and scrutinize and identify non-profitable wager bettors for us. In other words, people that are winning. They don't want winners. How good is that? I mean, is that really good for the game and good for the bettor?
Well, it's certainly not good for the game overall. And I will say, as you mentioned at the top, I formerly was with Circus Sports and am still a huge believer of everything they're doing. I'm their biggest fan, and we'll root for them till the sun goes down. And one of the things that when I was there, I was most proud of, and I know they're certainly doing, is they'll take bets from anyone. They'll have stated limits. And in a situation like this, just to use, fixed odds of, say, Monmouth Park as an example, it will probably start out as a very niche market. And the action on a day-to-day basis, whether it's a William Hill, whether it's FanDuel, DraftKings, Offshore, or whoever takes it, is that the action will probably be very minimal in the beginning. And so almost any book is going to try to limit their liability. So if they get someone, whether they're sharp or they're not, coming in and firing away on every race that's available, or 3 out of 5 races, they're gonna be cautious at first until they can learn that bettor's pattern, and then also they can build up their overall handle on the market. I think once that's done, you may get an instance where, to take the person you're referring to, who's not an overall winning bettor, he just has deep pockets, he may start to see, or they may start to see their limits rise, because the company has a better idea of, hey, they're going to hit once or twice here or there, but overall they're going to lose. And we have all this other money now to offset it, as opposed to in the beginning where they're like, this one bet is 65% of our handle. So we just can't gamble like that.
No, and you alluded to this, Paul. Part of the problem is horse racing as a fixed odds market is going to be a very immature market, right? The obvious other example, the most mature market in the world is probably NFL sides, right? Very few books would sneeze at taking a bet on an NFL side, even if it's big, from a player they've identified is not going to kill them, right?
Right.
Horse racing, since it's such an immature market, it's going to be hard for these guys to take high limits, just period, because it's hard for them to cap.
Right. And one example is, at Circa, we've done fixed odds for Triple Crown races, and the Derby one we have open, or had open, for 5 or 6 months. We got a lot of handle in there.
And Bezos didn't make the gate, so you did okay.
But we were able to kind of generate handle throughout a 5-6 month period. As we got closer to race day, our limits would go higher. But then once we would do the Preakness and the Belmont, at most we're, just a few days of having handle. So we'd be more conservative and we would have less bettors in it because, it didn't have the same allure as a, Derby with 240 horses, Preakness, the 8 that you're going to get. And so you have to monitor that, we just don't want to get buried on this market that we have no chance of even breaking even on, after 1 or 2 bettors hit you at a bad number.
Right. Now, let me ask you this, which I find interesting. Some years back, I was overseas and I was at a racetrack in England where you had to bet with bookies, okay, bookmakers, okay, and they had a dozen of them there, okay, and it was new to me. It was like
they're almost competing for your business.
Foreign thing to me, right? They're almost competing for your business, but like I shopped around. It's like, okay, I like this horse, and I shopped around, and the odds were pretty much, I mean, half a point different from one to another. There was no, big difference, and I couldn't find any horses that I thought, you know what, this is some great value here that I'm not going to get if this was a pari-mutual system. I kind of felt that most of the horses were offered at odds that was somewhat close to what I thought that they would go off. Now, I've seen here some of the offshore books that online that offer fixed odds, and some of the odds seem way too high for me. I'm like, why are they offering, 4 to 1 on this 8 to 5 shot? Are they going to let me bet 1,000 or 2,000? And if they do, are they going to then drop the price right after that? How does that work, Paul? I mean, give me a little insight into how that works. And was I wrong in saying, my observation, at least over there in the UK, was that none of those books was giving anything away. You know what I mean? They were all very close. And like I said, I don't think they were far off from what I would have gotten if I was betting at a pari-mutual window.
So in that case, with your overseas experience, I'll start there. My hunch is that, especially now with obviously, so many different sites where you can track, different books at once, whether, you see it a lot with traditional sports here in the US, but over there, whether it's Odds Check or a few other sites, books are looking at those just as much as the players are. So if you have a risk staff or a trading staff that is inexperienced in that market, their first line of thinking is, I'm just not going to stand out. I'm not going to put numbers out that I'm not comfortable in. So, if you have a bunch of guys or gals managing that are not familiar, with the tracks or just horse racing in general, they're going to play this conservative and just be like, everyone else has this horse at 4 to 1. We're going to be no better.
Yeah, they're just going to copy.
Yeah, and that's no good. That's not the goal. Really, what's going to make this succeed is you're going to need books that are willing to have staff who understand the tracks and what they're offering, that are going to move based on the action, based on the quality of the bettor. We all are kind of fit into a slot in a sports book, whether we know it or not. And that's where you look over time. Is this person a long-term winner? Are they super sharp in every sport? Are they super sharp in just, specific sports? And, when I used to do this at Circa, if I took a bet from someone that we respected, that we knew was sharp, I might drop the odds more than I would if it was, just a lot of money from, recreational bettors or people that we don't know. But then the key is, if I'm going to drop those horses, which is fair because now you're building up liability, it's only fair to give back in the rest of the pool. So, you got to raise horses up and have a competitive hold percentage. To me, when it comes to fixed odds working, books have to offer a fair hold percentage. So just for the sake of the conversation, say that's 10%. Okay. So if I have a horse that's 4 to 1 and I take a sharp bet from someone at the limit, and we'll say in this case, that's $2,000. If I take a $2,000 bet from someone that I know is sharp, I might lower that horse to 2 to 1, but it does me no good to just leave everybody else the same. And now my hold percentage is 15% or 18% or whatever it calculates to. Yeah. So in that case, a good book and one that wants to take bets is going to raise that hold, and they're going to find other horses where they can go higher. and attract money on those sides, and you're going to have a market, and that's the whole idea.
No,
Now,
and
let me ask you a dumb question, and I apologize. So if I'm betting at Circa or at a book or even at Mom, okay, and I'm betting on the fixed odds, okay, there's no takeout per se. The book makes their money off me if I win off the losing wagers that they're taking on that race on the fixed odds. Correct? There's no takeout per se.
There's no takeout, but every sports book, whether it's fixed odds racing or what we see more common here, futures betting in sports, has a hold percentage, and the hold percentage just equates to if same amount was bet on every offer, whether that's every horse or every team, you would make X amount, and depending on the efficiency of that market, it could be a lower hold percentage. If it's a niche market, NBA futures are going to be a lower hold percentage compared to WNBA futures where fewer people bet. And so, it might be 20 and 10% or 17 and 12% or more, or whatever the case is. So the idea of the hold percentage is if the same amount was bet on every listed participant, you would make that much money. But we all know that doesn't happen. And so that's where the liability comes in of, you need a good risk team to manage that, to make it fair for the player. And then also don't bury yourself when you're reporting to your bosses.
And that's what I'm concerned about. I don't know any sports book that's very sharp on horse betting. So I don't see I don't see anybody that's going to be willing to take a lot of risk with this fixed odds wagering in horses, because you just don't get a lot of horse players, at least in my experience, running sports books.
If you are a sports book that are going to take these daily races, first thing is you're not going to take every possible race. There's just no way. So even if it's one track and it's 12 races, the power that you need on the labor end of things is going to be too much. So you might pick the featured race of the day. You might, if it's an all stakes, pick 4, you might take those 4 races. But I can't imagine a scenario, unless they're using auto movers, which again, I don't know if that's realistic, where you're going to have the staff with only the time and the knowledge to do this, because remember they're taking money this time of year: baseball, UFC, NBA finals, Wimbledon, golf tournament, British Open's coming up, all those things. And so you can't dedicate too much labor to these few races that you may or may not get a handle on. And so that's to me the key. We would do one race at a time at Circa, and it would take a lot of energy. And granted, they were big races, but at the end of the day, people are always like, well, why don't you do the Oaks? Why don't you do the turf or the Humana Distaff or whatever? And it's just not enough time in the day and not enough staff who understands horse racing to do it.
Interesting stuff. Now, I read an article the other day that said, and I wish I could quote, where I read it and whose it was, but I just don't have that kind of memory. But I read an article that basically said that horse racing is ultimately going to embrace fixed odds wagering, and all the ADWs like Naira Bets, Twin Spires, all of them are all eventually going to have it, and it's going to be sooner than later, because if not, they're going to be left behind. And I had a hard time believing that and buying that, because the first thing I thought is, okay, how, like you said, there's a hold, okay, but how are the racetracks and the horsemen going to benefit? In other words, if I'm Naira, if I'm the New York Racing Association, and Twin Spires wants to offer fixed odds wagering on my product, on their app, what are they going to pay me for that? You know what I'm saying? I mean, how is that going to work? And how am I going to take care of my horsemen for that? So I don't know that it's so easy to say that they're all going to have to embrace this, when we have a pari-mutual system here that's, very, very different than what you have overseas and in other markets. And for the life of me, I'm not smart enough to sit here and figure out, well, okay, they can work together the same way like this or like that. So I really had a hard time figuring out how that would play out. Michael, Paul, you guys have any guess how that would work if ADWs wanted to offer that across the board? how does that happen? What, I mean, can
No,
that?
it'd be tough, John, because because again, I don't see Naira getting in the bookmaking business. I think it's gonna be places like FanDuel and DraftKings, William Hill, possibly Circa. I think it's gonna be experienced sports books that know fixed odds. Naira's in the business of putting on racing and running these pari-mutuals. I don't see Naira getting involved. I think it'll be or Churchill Downs. I think it'll be experienced sports books offering very limited amounts of betting on small amounts of racing, kind of like what Paul was saying earlier.
And I think, the dividend of the pie is going to ultimately make or break this thing. And we've seen with pari-mutual wagering, all of these different groups already have a heck of a time dividing the pie, and that's led to the higher takeout. They're like, well, we don't want to give up this. They don't want to give up that. Okay, well, let's just raise the takeout. And that's, led to some pretty big disasters along the way. And if you have to do that with the fixed odds, then all of a sudden the appeal of running it starts to grind away. And you're like, well, it's a better option. It's certainly better for the bettors. I'm convinced that any bettor with a clue who had the ability to bet through multiple books on fixed odds wagering would make a killing. They would be a step ahead of the risk teams. They would be able to, from the time it opens till the time it ends, treat it like a market. Say, hey, I'm going to bet X horse. You can actually give yourself fair odds lines when you handicap, and now you can say, oh man, I had this horse at 4-1. He's floated all the way up to 9-1. Let me grab him now, 3 hours before the race. And I think bettors would kill it.
Like arbitrage.
Yeah, any bettors who understand the market, who have opinions and are willing to go with them instead of, the thing I hate about pari-mutual wagering now is everyone spread. No one bets opinions anymore. Traditionally, I'm talking generally here. Fixed odds wagering, if you have an opinion, you can hammer that sucker. You could do it, in theory, in multiple places if it was ever to the level of, other sports where, here in Nevada, you have 9 different outs. And if you had 9 different outs for horse racing.
Because I'm an old school player. All right. I bet on my opinion. I'm not a spreader and a fisher.
Yeah.
Okay? Some people spread, cowboy, ticket, whatever. I go after my opinion. When I'm right, I want to get paid. When I'm wrong,
Sure.
I'm willing to lick my wounds and go home. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's just my style of betting. So based on what you're telling me, what I'm living, I would probably embrace fixed odds but here's my thing. Like when I saw it in action, I didn't see the 9-1 shot that I thought, was going to be 4-1. I just didn't see it. So let's say for argument's sake, there's a horse I love that's a favorite. Okay. And he's going to be about an 8-5 favorite. All right. What can I hope to get on him in a fixed odds system realistically? And how much will they let me bet?
I think that's going to be up to each individual company. As we've seen in the last couple of years, some companies are willing to take bets. Some are going to not only not take very high limits, but as the first sign they have a pulse, they're going to limit you.
Let's take your pool for example at Circa. And I know Circa is not representative of like the whole market. You guys are much fairer to the bettors in most of the books. But if I wanted to bet a Derby horse with you this year, what would you have limited me at?
So when we opened the pool back in December, our odds, or excuse me, not our odds. So we had, I want to say 150, 175 horses listed, and eventually through time got up to over 200. But we would take $200 on any horse, so risking 200 on any horse. So if the horse was 500-1, we would take 200. If the horse was 21, we take 200. And then what we would do is on horses 20-1 or less, we would have increased amounts. So, if the horse was 10-1, greater than 10-1 and less than 21, we would take a nickel of $500.
Yep.
If the horse was 5-1 to 1,000, excuse me, to 10-1, we would take 1,000. And then, favorites, we would, maybe take up to 2,000 risk amount. And that changed as we got closer to the race.
Gotcha. So like on race day, like what was your cap on race day if I wanted to bet the favorite?
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, we took certainly we took 5,000. We might have taken 10 the day of. I can't remember exactly.
Because like if thinking about it, especially this year, because this year was a unique year where we knew Essential Quality was going to get Mattress Mac money in the win pools, right? The perfect way to bet that race, if you wanted Essential Quality, would have gone to you. I would have gone to your book, right?
Yeah,
and bet as much as I can.
Exactly, and I think I know we took at minimum 5,000 the day of. We might have gotten to 10,000, a couple hours before. And yeah, you could have gotten over 2-to-1 with us, a couple hours before the race. And then, once Mattress Mac, it started to go down and then up, and it was certainly the better way to go because you had that locked in. You didn't have to wait and see. And I think that's the key, especially with sports bettors you're trying to convert to horse bettors, is they don't like to bet a horse and be like, oh, I bet this horse.
That was me. That 100% was me. I was a sports bettor and I didn't understand it when I first came to horse racing.
And then all of a sudden the horse goes off at 6-to-1 and you're like, well, I wouldn't have made that bet. And so that's the allure of fixed odds racing to me is that if I like a horse and I'm going to pound him. If I see him at 10-to-1 at one book, I'm going to pound him. If I think he should be 5-to-1, I may see him at other books at 7-to-1, 6-to-1. And I have that option to just keep betting them in all these different places. And then, the horse may go off at 4-to-1 and I have all this value. Still may lose, but you have better.
And I know some sports books will do this if somebody comes in and they want to bet over whatever your limit is. So if your limit's $10,000 on a horse, but they want to bet $20,000. I know some books will like offer a blended line of like, basically you will let you bet the 10,000 at the current odds, but your next 10,000, we're moving those odds and we're going to offer you this line. Do you think that would be possible with fixed odds horse racing?
I think there's definitely a lot of scenarios where books will say, well, we'll give you 5,000 at this number. And once you place that bet, we're going to move it.
Right.
And once we move it, if you want to bet it again, you can. And I've worked
because to me, that's fair, right? It's like you have your limit, you can get your limit bet in, but if you want to come behind that, we get to change the odds to whatever we want.
I've worked for two different companies, and both of them were like that in the sense of, we'll give you this is the limit, and it's what we agreed at. Yeah. You go to place it, whatever the number's at, we'll give it to you then. But you need to wait until we move it, which sometimes takes 3 seconds, sometimes it takes a minute. And then once we move it, you can bet it again. No double, it doesn't make sense for us to say, oh, we'll take 5,000. Okay, do another 5,000. We don't want any structure like that.
Exactly.
I'll tell you something interesting that a lot of people might not know and realize. Okay. ADWs will limit certain bets into pari-mutual pools. Okay.
Really?
100%. And I'll explain. I don't know of them ever doing it in a win situation, but I know several ADWs that will cap you on show bets at a certain amount. Okay. 5, 10,000, 20,000, whatever the case may be, especially if you're a player that develops a history and a pattern of doing that, bridge jumping, so to speak. They'll cut you right out and say, no, we just
like Arrogate in the Pacific Classic. Yep.
Okay. And I know, and it's funny that Monmouth Park is the one that's championing this fixed odds, because I knew a guy who was one of those bridge jumpers, and I never understood that way of betting. All right. But this guy was a guy that would come to the track. I didn't know him. I've met him a bunch of times. I've seen him do it, so I knew he did it. And he would bet $100,000 to show on odds-on favorites. Okay, and he'd pick up his 5,000 to whatever it was. You know what I mean? And risk that $100,000. And I never understood it. You know what I mean? And I seen him lose a big one once, and I didn't ask. I wanted to ask him. I'm like, it's going to take you 100 bets to make that back. I don't understand. But. Yeah. But one time he told me, and I forget what the race was. I think it was some heavy favorite in the Haskell, and he went to Monmouth Park, and they refused his $100,000 show bet. They said, no, we're just not taking it. No, you can't do it. And he put up a big stink, and it didn't matter. They would not take his bet. So pari-mutual systems, contrary to what many people think, they can say, no, No, thank you. And I know ADWs that have done it to people that do this. And like I said, this guy I know for a fact, they absolutely turned him down.
Right.
You know, I think fixed odds is good. I think it creates opportunities, and I think that bettors should have as many choices as we can possibly get in front of them. Those that like it, let them gravitate to it and have their shot at it. Me, I don't know. I haven't been around it long enough to know which way I'll gravitate, but I have learned to love the pari-mutual system. I'm one of the few players who I'm not afraid to play against the computer syndicates. Okay. I like their money in the pool because if I could beat them in one race, they've got so much invested, that gives me an advantage. And I know the things to look for that a computer can't spot, no matter what algorithms and what you have programmed in there. The memory and experience and human mind, and knowing that, you know, this guy likes to give a horse a race and then likes to give him another race. Then he works him this way and likes to win. Computers can't know those kind of things that we can learn over time.
But Paul kind of alluded to this. These computer guys will love fixed odds if they get the limits they can get.
Well, we don't know if they're going to get those limits. So I embrace the pari-mutual system. I like playing against the recreational money and the dumb money and the people who aren't as prepared as me and the guys that brought a knife to a gunfight. I like playing against them. You know what I mean?
Well, you know, the thing that the pari-mutual situation, whether you think it's broken or not, that it offers that fixed odds never will, is there still is that opportunity, whether it's the pick 4, pick 5, pick 6, you can bet a little and win a lot. Fixed odds is going to be a heck of a lot more of a grind, and you might be able to get a book that gives you, you know, pretty good limits, but you know, you still are going to have to produce a win percentage that's more in line with traditional sports betting. Yeah, you know, as far as, you know, okay, I got to win X amount to hit the numbers I want to hit, as opposed to, you know, putting in $120 pick 6 ticket and, you know, walking away with,
it'd be
20,000 or whatever number you want to come up with.
It'd be almost closer to like a money line market, like hockey or baseball, where you hit the
now let's say these computer model guys, okay, and we know there are a lot of these computer models that are very successful at identifying horses with a good shot and what those odds should be based on their, you know, probability of winning. Okay, there are some very good models out there. Now let's say these guys embrace this, okay, and they're winning a lot, okay, by betting, you know, 6 and 8 and 9 to 1 shots that should be 5 or 6 to 1, and then are they going to get weeded out and identified and say, you know what, we're going to limit you, or we're going to cut you off? If, you know, these books are not going to want to lose, you know. So how long are these guys going to have a run, if they have a run like that?
It all depends on the operators, and I think that's the big unknown. I think operators will come in very conservative, and that could scare away some people. They may come in at first and say, okay, we'll take what you want, and then they'll back you off, which isn't good. I don't know how, especially the operators on the East Coast, that might take moment. I don't think there's much of a chance of it coming out to Vegas anytime soon. Vegas has enough issues with its pari-mutual setup right now. You know, you'll see the fixed odds for Derby and you know, a few select races throughout the year, but the day-to-day stuff I can't see coming out anytime soon. So when I picture the Northeast and I think of, you know, the stuff at Monmouth, you know, for its success to work, it's going to come down to how many operators are going to do it. Because if you just have one, then they're going to be able to kind of name the price, and they're going to have, you know.
Well, and Paul, give listeners an idea of like how much that time and people it takes just to book something like you did basketball, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So just talk through a little bit of like how much actual manpower goes into making a market for something like basketball.
Yeah. So, you know, when say a regular day, you know, a full day, but a regular season day in the NBA, we would have 2 or 3 people working on it throughout the day. Usually who's ever there first to start off the day, kind of make sure the lines are up. You know, you have all your markets, which are your spreads, your totals, and then your money lines. It usually kind of goes in that order. So you make sure you get all those up. A big part of the day is watching injury news, especially the NBA, which is the most volatile as far as who's in, who's out. And then usually about midday, you get more staff in, and there might be two of you working on the NBA, or you might just hand it off at some point. And then there'll be kind of a third guy closing out the night, and then also kind of setting the table for the next day. So on a busy Saturday in, say, February, we would have 2 or 3 people, maybe on college basketball. We'd have one who maybe does NBA and hockey, or one does NBA, one does hockey.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not with Circus Sports. I want to make that clear to everybody. I'm sure they know by now, but I speak thinking kind of from that point of view. We were still a startup, we were still a couple of years into it. They just now had their 2nd anniversary in June. So it's not the same mature number of people working on the staff as you might see at an MGM or a William Hill or FanDuel.
Sure.
And so they might be able to dedicate more people to it. But I know that everybody we had was very good, but we didn't have an excess of people that we could just say, okay, you 3 are doing these 3 horse tracks today. I mean, that would never be an option.
Well, and that's what I'm trying to get at is, like, let's just take Saratoga Summer Meet. It's like a 10 race card, and there's 20, 30 minutes in between each race. How many people would you think let's say you wanted to do the whole card. How many people do you think you would need to actually properly book that card?
If you were doing one card and that's all they were doing, you could probably get away with one person actively doing it. And whether that's, one person at the start of the day, one person takes over halfway through. But I mean, you need one person's focus, because you're going to see bets coming in for race 3, for race 6. You're moving those. Okay. Now you find out there's a big scratch in race 5. Okay. Got to readjust those odds. And it's a lot of just on the fly. See bets coming for race 7. Okay, I got to move that.
And that's actually something I didn't think of, because we get gate scratches.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I could get great odds. The odds can drop in half from what I got. So it would actually be advantageous to bet as soon as possible.
Right. And we, for the stuff we did here this past year, for the Derby, up until the post position draw, all bets were action. So, I mean, that's, when you have 250 horses and at most 20 are going to get paid, all bets are action. But then once the post position draw happened, then horse must start for action. And so on a day-to-day basis, I'm sure that the, scratches would be refunds, just like they are on the pari-mutual system, because books would be out of their mind to put up these races before, the morning of. They'd be out of their mind to do it the day before, when the draw happens on Wednesdays for Saturdays or whatever.
Do you think it's something that just because of all that's involved and how new and fresh it is, that it's something that will have to be phased in over time, like track by track, certain races only? I mean, based on what I'm gathering from the two of you who know more about this than I do, it seems to me like something that, and I don't know how they're doing it at Monmouth, but it's something that, okay, maybe 1 race a day to start, or 2 races a day to start, and then, kind of work up to more and more and more until you're offering a full card and a full meet and a full track. I think it would be difficult to just, open up Saturday with fixed odds wagering and have the whole card available, any horse that I want.
Yeah, I agree. I think the only way that works is if you get an ADW company, for example, a Twin Spires or an Ira Bets, that says, hey, we're gonna start an entire division that's solely, that they invest in basically their fixed odds operation. So that means we're gonna hire X amount of staff. They don't do anything else. They basically just do fixed odds for whatever tracks you have agreements for and races. And what the size of that staff would be, I don't know, but you would have to have, I think, 100% dedication to make it worthwhile. Now, offshores do some of this, of course, and I'm unfamiliar with their operations. And I've known some people who've worked there, and I don't know if they have 150 people in their operation, if they have 25, if they have 75. So I don't know. So those operations may be kind of the blueprint for this, but I just don't see a scenario where you can do it for under, a lot of people.
I don't want to really knock offshore wagering. Okay. There are obviously some benefits to it. I don't do it. I've had bad experiences with it. Okay. Years ago, when the Giants beat the Patriots and that guy made that ridiculous catch, okay, I bet the Giants in the money line,
Yep.
okay, and it
By the
took,
way, it's like one of two Super Bowls that the city of Vegas has lost money on
okay, well,
because everybody and their brother bet the money line.
all right, I won money through. I was betting sports that year through some site. I want to say the name of the site was sports.com. It was that simple, but I'm not sure. Um, anyway, it took me a year to get half my money. Okay, and it wasn't a lot of money. It was about 15, 16,000 that I won. Okay, first thing they did was in about 2 weeks they sent me a check. It bounced. Okay.
That's not good.
Then they apologized and said they were very sorry, but because of the laws in the U.S., that this, that, they had a problem. They're going to send me another check, and it came from, believe it or not, they were like in Costa Rica or something. Came from some company in Vegas that I never heard of. So when I got it, I called up. I said, "Why it's from Vegas?" They said, "Well, we had to do that. They're like our holding company because it is that. Don't worry, it's okay." That check bounced. When I called up, I'm like, "Now, come on, you guys are 2 for 2 with bouncing checks." They're like, "Oh, this company in Vegas, they stole all our money. We were paying everybody, and they took all." I said, "Listen, that sounds a great sob story here. How do I get my money?" All right. Took me literally 6 months of fighting with these people. At one point, they said, "Listen, baseball season's starting. Why don't you just stop betting baseball?" I'm listen, guys, seriously, why am I going to bet with you people you don't pay if I win? Pay me and then we'll talk. Okay? I did wind up getting like 6 or 7,000 out of them. Okay, a $1,500 check here to the, and eventually I gave up, and eventually they went out of business. Okay, but I got like half the money out of them. Never had a good feeling after that. Okay, I play a lot of poker in my life. I grew up dealing poker in the illegal clubs in Brooklyn. Okay, um,
Everything about you confirms that, by the way.
that's not nice. That's uncalled for. But I never play poker online. Okay, all right. I played poker in a park with guys that could cheat pros, man. You know what I mean? That guys that could shuffle with one hand and cut the cards with one hand like faster than you can do it with two.
Yeah.
I'm like, if I seen those guys, who knows who I'm playing online? Okay, and one of the reasons I don't bet online, it was a time when some one of these offshore books, when I was betting a lot of money, okay, they approached me at Gulfstream Park and said, "Listen, you bet with us. We'll give you these ridiculous rebates. We'll do this. We'll lease your car. We'll do anything." And my handler back then probably warranted it, okay? But I said, "You know what? I can't trust you. I can't do it." I said, "Because if I hit something for 100 or 200 grand, okay, I don't know you guys are going to pay me." Okay. And
Yeah.
I don't want to have to go to Costa Rica and kill somebody because with 200 grand, I'll probably kill you. And I don't
You
want to
could
be in
find
that
somebody in the
position.
card room that do it for you. Come on.
I don't want to be in that position. So I never trusted them, you know? And then there was a thing on social media, on Twitter. I don't know. Recently, where some poor guy made a bet on, I think, that 365.com, and they said, "No, you had to make the bet before 8 o'clock in the morning, or the bonus didn't count," and this and everything. And I don't know whether they paid him or not, but he was fighting, had everybody fighting for him. They were bad mouthing this offshore company to no end. Okay, so I know a lot of these offshore companies are offering fixed odds. Okay. And if you're betting with them and getting paid, all the power to you. The way I bet, and I would hit things, you know what I mean? I got the potential to hit you hard. I want to get paid. All right. I've hit at Gulfstream. I'm sorry, at Calder. Okay. And Ed Mackey was the director of mutuals. Even before that, with when Pat Mahoney was the director of mutuals, had to call me in and say, "John, I'm sorry, I don't have the money to pay you." I'm like, "What? How do you do it?" He goes, "I don't have the money to pay you. You got to come back like in 2 days. I got to order the money from Churchill Downs and have it." He goes, "If I pay you now, I got to pay you with fives and tens, and we'll have no money to pay anybody else." He goes, we don't have that kind of cash." It was a simulcast day. So to me, betting offshore, dangerous proposition. Playing poker online, I don't know what they could see with my car. I don't trust that. You know what I mean? I got to be out of your mind, in my opinion, to do that. To make a bet where I could win over 10,000, or let alone 50 or 100, 150,000, and worry if some company in Costa Rica is gonna do the right thing and pay me. Never put myself in that position. I just wouldn't do it.
Yeah, no, and I don't have much experience since I moved to Las Vegas in 2015. I've kept pretty much everything here. Well, I've kept everything here, not pretty much, but I've kept everything here. Here we don't have access to ADWs.
Right.
Certainly, offshores are available, and I know some people do use them here. But to me, it's I take my chances with the 8 or 9 sportsbook companies that we have access to here, and I know I may not get all the value that I could get at an offshore place if I went that route. But to me, a big part of what I do is I want to do it the right way, and
Exactly.
more importantly, if I hit, I can go down during normal business hours and collect my money. And if I at any point I'm unsatisfied with the sports book, I can go and withdraw my money from my account, and it can be done within a couple hours, and I'm just done with it. But to each their own.
Yeah, no, and like I said, I'm sure there's some legitimate sports books out there offshore that pay and are honorable and are run by reputable outfits. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm also sure that there are some that are not. And I'm sure
Oh,
they
absolutely.
all look like they are until you hit them for 6 figures. And then you find out maybe they're not. You know what I mean? And then you're in a position where I don't think you have any legal recourse whatsoever to get paid. You know what I mean?
No.
So put yourself in that position is just, I wouldn't do it, especially that feeling that I had with when the Giants miraculously won that game, and I got checks bouncing. You know what I mean? And they come from checks from some Vegas company bouncing. At least you bet in Vegas, they're going to pay you if you win.
Right.
You know what I mean? If they take your action, you're getting paid. I know the racetrack. Okay, even though Calder didn't have the cash on hand to pay me, I knew I was getting paid. I went back a couple of days later. They gave me $100,000 brick. Guy says, and then a bunch of loose money too. Guy says, you want me to cut the brick open and count it? I'm like, nah, I'll take the brick just as it is. You know what I mean?
My fair stories. So
Yeah, so you're going to get paid. The offshore. Like let's say I had an offshore that's going to let me. Like one of the reasons I love Derby Day and Breeders' Cup Day is okay, and I love to make bets like this. I love to go to the window and bet 10,000 a win on a 7 or 8 to 1 shot, and I don't move the board. You know what I mean?
Right.
I can't do that during the week. You know what I mean? I can't even do that on a Saturday in these small fields nowadays. You know what I'm saying? So I don't do it anymore except on those days. But I love doing that, and I know I'm going to get paid. If I bet 10,000 on some 8 to 1 shot offshore and they take it, okay, what am I going to do with my computer ticket if they don't pay me? You know what I mean? When I go to withdraw that 80, 90,000 and it's not in my bank, and 2, 3 days later, I'm calling up, I'm on hold, I'm this, I'm that. I'm going to be booking flights to Costa Rica, who knows where. You know what I mean?
They're going to say, well, we need you to produce all these bills with your address. We need you to roll it over 9 times.
Right,
and then,
exactly.
We'll pay you $500 a week till
right, exactly. That doesn't work for me. You know what I mean? Vegas, they're going to pay you. You know what I mean? Racetracks, ADWs are going to pay you. This offshore. Another thing I can never get my arms around is poker online. Even though it's not for that kind of money, I can't play on poker online. People I can't see sitting in front of me.
Right.
No way. I know you can't see my cards. You know what I mean? There's all kinds of hackers. I know guys can hack into everything you can't imagine they can hack into. They hack into. You don't think there's people know how to see your cards on some online poker site?
Right.
Not for me, man. Not for me. Not for me. But fixed odds, I think we're in agreement. It could be something good for the game. It's an alternative. I love alternatives. Like I said, I believe in free market for the better. You know what I mean? You want my wagering money, earn it. Give me options. Let me bet where I'm more comfortable betting. And if I can make money at fixed odds and people can make money at fixed odds and it's comfortable and legal, I think nowadays there's so many legal ways to bet. Anybody betting illegally has got to be an idiot. But I think in that regard it's good, but I don't think, especially after talking with you gentlemen, that it's the save all of racing.
No, I
don't
I
think
don't
that's
think
at
it's
all.
a save all. My hope is that enough operators in whatever jurisdiction given an opportunity, and give the players a chance to prove that they're interested. We had the experiment with exchange wagering in New Jersey. I think it was New Jersey, and it never took off, and there wasn't enough interest, and there may not be enough interest outside of your big races of the year. But I'd like to see someone or some operators give it a go, give the bettors a chance to have a new option, like you say.
And it's funny. I was really hoping that exchange wagering did take off because I love the concept. I
was
love
about to say that's your favorite way, right? If
I
it's
I love it. I would make $1 million the first year. Okay. And what I would
a
do is
lot of practice.
I would pick horses that I knew couldn't win. All right. And I would say, listen, I'll give you, I'll put up whatever money I got to put up to do it the right way, 100,000, half a million, whatever I got to put up. I'll make it so attractive that you will bet that horse with me, a horse I know can't win. You follow me? Because I think sometimes it's easier, believe it or not, to pick out a horse that's too slow or that's not good enough that people like, you know what I mean? A bad favorite that people like. And I'll say, okay, I'll give you, he's 4 to 5. I'll give you 2 to 1. You know what I mean? And take all you got, you know what I mean? And put the money up. And I just know I know I'd beat him. I destroy him. I wish it took off and was legal. I thought about moving to Canada or somewhere just where it is legal to do it. But what I found is that the market is very small, even in places where it is allowed, is that the market is very small. And here, I think one of the reasons why they don't push it is because if we're taking bets or allowing people to bet on horses to lose, there's just too much room for nefarious conduct, I think, you know what I mean? And things like that. And I think that hurt it a lot. But if I could give you 2 to 1 on an even money that I think can't win, and your bet's secure because I got to put the money in the exchange. So if you win, you're covered, you're getting paid, you got nothing to worry about, you know what I mean? And you got to put the money in the exchange. So I know if you lose, you're getting paid. I'll take $100 grand and the 200 grand and go for it. I would love to be able to do that a couple of times a year. I would live for that. And I would live that. That's all I would do. I would stop betting everything else and just do that, man. And offer big prices on horrible favorites where they were lining up to bet with me and I would take them down, man. I wish that took off, but didn't. What are we going to do?
Like I said, it's where it's we'll see how it gets rolled out. I'm very curious about it. We're going to get some examples soon. And like I said, I think we're all in agreement. It makes me a little nervous because the beauty of pari-mutuals is if you keep winning, no one can really kick you out. So with the small exception that you talked about, John.
Yeah, and that's a very small exception. Like I said, I've only seen it in show wagering. I've never seen it anywhere else. I've never seen them turn down a win bet of any size. But we all know that you can't really bet. You're not limited by that by the system as to how much you can bet to win. You're limited by the pool. You know what I mean? Eventually, you're betting against your own money at some point when you get to that certain number. That's why I love Breeders' Cup Day and Derby Day, because that number is much higher.
It almost is fixed odds on those days,
On those days, yeah, you're not really going to move $10,000 bet, even more. Maybe you're not even going to move the board unless you're a maniac like that Mattress Mac guy. That's a whole nother story. But interesting stuff.
He needs to keep firing, man, because.
Yeah, I mean, Paul, thank you so much for coming on, man. Very, 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 very insightful. Definitely know more about this than me. I love hearing about the way you guys do things over there, from the book side of it, I know how the old
Oh, it's
fashioned
fascinating.
bookies you used to operate, but the Vegas books are a lot different than that old, that old
Vegas used to
style.
be like that. Not anymore though.
Yeah, Vegas was like that, I guess, when they started, but now it's a
A little cleaner now.
Yeah, a little different.
Paul's not coming with a baseball bat,
No, man, they would never send me out anyway. I'm too easy of a pushover. But I appreciate you guys having me. At the very top, you use the term expert, and I'm by no means an expert on this. It's something that
Nah, you're pretty sharp with this stuff, man. Okay,
but I think there's a lot of room for people to learn about it, and my hope is that it takes off and that we get to see it in action, and hopefully it can be an option for all of us one day.
Yeah, no, and I mean, I'm anxious to get into it and see and take some, fixed odds shots. I'm very interested to see when they first offer it, and they're offering like a nice price on a horse, and I tell them, okay, I want 10,000, and see what they say, like right off the bat.
I will almost guarantee they will not take that. There's no way.
I think any book who's worth has honor, even if it's a low limit. I think when they do it, they say these are our limits. We'll honor every one of these limits, and then put that out ahead of time. And that's one thing I was very proud that Circuit has always done, and I'm sure always will. Is like, you may not like the limit, but you know it ahead of time.
Right, and that's fair. That's fair. Right.
As opposed to say, oh, we'll take your action, and you come, and you're like, I want to do 10,000 or 5,000. Oh, we'll take 1, or we'll take 500, and then it's like, I just wasted my time and energy when you could have just said, hey, we're taking small limits on this. And
one of the things I did notice when I was overseas and at Goodwood, there were books, okay, even though they're in competition, but there were books where, like, let's say they were offering 7-2 on a horse, you know what I mean? And you wanted a 2,000. I was like, no, I don't want to give you 2,000, but so-and-so will give you 2,000, no problem. They'll send you somewhere that would, like, so even though they were in competition, they were somewhat, they were working together. Like, I saw some of that happening, you know what I mean? So that was kind of good.
Yeah, for sure.
Interesting system, but let's see how it plays out. I'm excited to see it, and hopefully it's a good thing, man.
Yeah, I hope so. Thanks again for having me, guys. A ton of fun. Really.
Thanks. Always a pleasure. We'll get you back on again, and we still think you're an expert, even if you want to be modest about it. And
right, I'm sure people will watch it. Be like, that guy is not an expert, but hopefully they enjoy it. That's
absolutely. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to another episode of Past the Wire TV. We appreciate you tuning in and watching us, and ciao for now.
Ciao for now.
Vino Rosso has taken the lead, and it's a vintage performance by Vino Rosso.
Nobody does it better.